My whole mind state changed digging into Rastafari. Eventually, it's going into me leading into the books of the Bible that were left out. Then I started to feel like, man, I've pretty much been lied to my whole life. It completely changed my life. So when you hear me say Jah, I'm still just praising the Creator out of respect for what I learned as a youth.
Now, I love like the whole Rastafarian history. One of the first documentaries I made on this channel was about Haile Selassie.
Like war is a speech from Selassie. War is just a word for word Selassie speech. Until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior. That's a Selassie speech.
Welcome to Everyday Esoteric on Esoteric Eddie TV.
What up, everybody? Esoteric Eddie here. Namaste. Today's guest is a legend, absolute legend. I can't even describe to you how much this man's work has impacted my life, impacted the life of so many other people around the world, specifically in hip hop, but in many other ways, I'm sure. We're going to talk about his journey in music, in hip hop, his journey with knowledge, with esoteric, occult knowledge, how he got into that, and graffiti, I'm sure, as well. Just so much. It's going to be an awesome conversation. Yeah, man, this is going to be an amazing conversation. A lot of deep wisdom and knowledge. But I'll let the man tell you himself. Everybody welcome Mr. Blame One.
Oh, man. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And you already know, just like I was telling you, I'm a fan of what you do. I like the way that you actually talk to people in not only just a knowledgeable way, but also you do it in a very like mellow, humorous, and just a way that like anybody could relate to it, no matter what you're into, you know. So
man, that means a lot. That means a lot coming from you, man. Honestly,
100%.
For real. And like we were just saying, you know, like that's just how I've always been. You know, I've always been a crazy maniac, and so when I first started doing this stuff, I didn't really know how I was going to do it.
Right.
I didn't know if I wanted to approach it from like a mysterious, serious place.
Okay, right.
But then I was like, I don't know, that kind of got old. I'm like trying to uphold that persona. And so I started slowly kind of just letting some of my more natural, goofy side into all of it.
That's dope.
Yeah, because I'm like, man, I don't want to like play a character for too long, you know? And that's kind of one of the reasons why I got out of hip hop, like local hip hop.
Okay.
Because I felt like I just wasn't resonating with the person I was anymore. And I like had to uphold that ego.
Yeah. Actually, I could relate to that to a degree because like a lot of times when people meet me, they're like, because I joke around like a lot. Like in person, like I'm like a biggest goofball ever. But then my music is like more serious, you know, and I get into like a lot of deeper topics. So part of me, like, I feel like, man, I should have introduced that Biz Markie side of me into my music too, because it would have given people like a realistic idea when they meet me. Like, they're like, oh yeah, like, so we're not going to talk about God and philosophy. Like, Blame's just going to clown my shoes. You know what I mean? Like
dude, I go through the same thing, man. Like, and so I'm slowly trying to incorporate more of like just Eddie. You know, like just my humorous side, my goofy side, because that's really how I am most of the time.
Right.
You know, and it's the same thing. People meet me, they're like, "Yo, we're gonna talk about how we gonna take down the government. What's up with these reptilians?" You know,
right?
I'm like, bro, I'm just trying to chill. Like, what do you mean? Like, let's go get some In and Out, kick it by the beach, you know, whatever.
You're about it, but you're like, yo, this is my day to day. We're just having fun or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has become part-time work for me, so it's like you kind of want to leave work at work.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like,
I guess that's the same for me too. Yeah. Like my music definitely became my job at a certain point, and I did like kind of push that to the side when I was with other people. I'd be like, yo, I'm just hanging. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I don't have to spit a freestyle right now.
Right.
Man, all right. So let's get into it because we got a lot to cover, I'm sure. So first and foremost, I always like to tell the story of like how I met my guest. And
Okay.
so, to be honest, I don't even remember the first time I met you. I remember some of the first times that I met you. And just so people know, like, this is a living legend in not
Oh man, come on.
specifically North County hip hop, but I mean, your music has touched the world at this point, you know. And when I first heard you, it was on Attic One's Collective Culture.
Oh, dope.
I think that was volume 1 or 2. But it was an amazing project, and I was like in 6th grade when it came out.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
Whoa,
yeah.
that's crazy.
I was in 6th grade. And
I think Attic was in 8th grade. You know what I mean? I just fucking with the Attic.
he's younger than you?
He's way younger than
No
me.
way.
Yeah,
Oh, shit, okay. That puts a lot of perspective.
for sure.
Because he's always been my
He's the big
uncle.
homie, yeah,
He's
for
like,
sure.
in a weird way, my uncle, but like the homie uncle.
Right. Because you and Vex too, it's our family,
Me
right?
and Vex, we're cousins, not blood, but we might as well be. I mean,
Right.
I've known him for as long as I've been alive.
Right.
And so he's Vex's uncle. So he's like, by way of that, my uncle.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, man. So I heard that project, and it was a phenomenal project. That project is what really kicked all of us into like wanting to do hip hop,
That's dope.
like in a huge way. We were already kind of in it, but like that project was like, all right, let's really fucking do this. You know,
Dope.
it excited all of us. You know, me, my cousins, my brothers, and I think you were on the closing track or one of the like your track stood out more than anybody else's for whatever reason. But that track, hella confused.
Yeah, that's bro. Like honestly, me and Attic have done some joints, and that's probably my favorite one. Yeah, probably my favorite one.
Dude, that beat, just when the beat hits, you're just like, shit. It's like one of those just like phenomenal tracks.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that, and big up Attic, of course.
Absolutely, gotta have him on, dude. A lot of stories. But yeah, so that was like the first time I heard about you, and then ever since then, like you were just a legend. You know, your name was always around, and then eventually, you know, we were in the same circle. Eventually, you and my cousin started working together, and then so I was just like, dang, like, you know. And eventually, before I was just a part of it. You know, I was a part of the North County hip hop community. You know,
of course, yeah.
And the people I looked up to became my homies, my OG homies. You know,
For sure.
We've known each other for many, many years now,
Without a doubt, yeah.
And yeah, so that was how I first heard about you. But you have a lot of music that I like that we'll get into. And as you were alluding to, a lot of your music is also very philosophical, knowledgeable, you know, intellectual. And so that's what also drove me to your music and to you as a homie, as a person, because I knew that you had an understanding when it came to like the esotericism, the occultism, and all that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, man. So let's start from the beginning. So I know a little bit about your story. I know that you've been doing hip hop since you were basically a kid.
Pretty much my whole life, like really.
So where did you grow up?
So I was born in Toledo, Ohio, but my family had left Toledo, Ohio when I was like 3 months old. So I had no really connection to Toledo, other than my family's roots there. And we moved to Baltimore, and essentially like I grew up in Baltimore until I was 11, and pretty much everything I know about hip hop, and I literally brought that out here, was from Baltimore. I mean, by the time I came out here at 11, my oldest homie Coma, who is still like probably my closest friend to this day, he's the first person I ever met in Cali. And I remember just sharing him mad tapes.
What years were these?
This is 86 when I moved out here.
Yeah.
So 86, I moved out here, and I was sharing with him like just crazy amounts of like East Coast files, because all I would do was just tape the radio. And when I say tape the radio, I don't mean like just mainstream radio. I was on the college radio, and you know, there was a station in Baltimore called WEVB, and they played all the just illest like hits of across the East Coast. And so by the time I came out here, I had like already an extreme like knowledge of hip hop by the time I was 11, which is wild. And then I passed that on to my homeboy Coma, who was 8.
Oh, shit.
So I'm 11, Coma's 8, and I'm giving him this shit that nobody out here even knows about. And to this day, he's like looked at as like a weirdo because he knows too much for how old
like
he is.
Hip-hop savant and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right, well, hold up, because like, damn, so how do you even get to the point where you're like looking up college radios and all of that?
Well, I would say my first like real hip hop experience was, first of all, a lot of cats would just b-boy in front of our like little condos that we lived in at the time. And it was like in Baltimore back then, it was very, very segregated. Wow. Like, here's a black neighborhood, here's a white neighborhood. There might be a couple like Puerto Rican cats sprinkled in the mix, some Asian dudes. Like the first time, this is gonna sound hilarious, but I'm dead ass serious. The first time I ever even heard of a Mexican person was coming to California. Oh, I had never met a Mexican person in my life, bro. Like, and you come to Cali and it's like, what? It was culture shock.
Everywhere out here.
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is occupied Mexico. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, but at the time, it was super culture shock by the time I moved out here. But essentially, I used to see cats b-boying in front of my my condo that I lived in. And I came out there and I was like, yo, like, can I please, like, get a dub of that cassette that you're playing? And this cat Mike that lived like 2 doors down from me, his dad was a professional boxer at the time. His name was Mike Ingram. And he was like, yo, he's like, I'll give you a dub of this cassette, but he's like, you got to get your mom to take us to the pool. Because you had to be 16 to go to the pool by yourself.
What the heck?
So I literally had to beg my mom to take a group of people to the pool, and then he let me get a dub of the cassette, and that's how I got into hip hop.
Classic. Yeah. That's classic. Community, that's like old school community shit. Like, yo, come on, we're trying to go to the pool, man. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I remember being a kid, like we couldn't go to the pool by ourselves, so like somebody in the hood had to like take us.
Right. It
was always like the homie's older sister or something. Like,
exactly.
Like, just take us all to the pool. That's hilarious, man. Damn. So hip hop started like in the late 70s, right?
For sure.
So they say. So did you see it? Like, you were alive then, right? Or
yeah, I mean, you know, I was born in 75, so I would say like when hip hop really started affecting me was about 82. So by the time I was like 7, I was hearing like, you know, the typical, you know, Sugar Hill Gang and, you know, stuff like that. And then eventually it would be like, you know, of course, Nucleus, Jam on It. Everybody's gonna say that from my era. But who really got me into hip hop hard was there was a group called Rockmaster Scott and the Dynamic 3. I bring this up frequently because it's one of those songs I just know word for word, and I know it since I was a little kid. You know, a song called Request Line. And once I heard that joint, Malcolm McLaren, Buffalo Girls. Oh man, I used to literally call up the station as a little kid and, yo, can I hear Buffalo Girls, Malcolm McLaren? You know what I mean? And and my babysitter at the time was like a punk rock dude, and he knew about like Beastie Boys had their first single out, I think. You know, of course, Run DMC, and it was just starting to become part of mainstream culture, but not at where it is obviously now. You know what I mean?
Crazy how far it's come.
It's insane. Yeah,
so that's wild. So you saw like the roots of it, like the early growth of it.
Yeah, big time.
And so you were put on, and then you're calling these stations and everything, and so you come out to Cali. What brought you out to Cali?
So basically my sisters, I'm the youngest in my family of my siblings, so and when I say youngest, I mean like 15 years apart type. Shit, so I'm like super youngest of the family.
I'm the baby too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So my sisters all migrated to Cali before my mom moved out here, and pretty much my mom and my dad had split at a super young age, and my mom's like, "We're going to Cali."
Yeah.
We did two treks. The first trek was in '82, which was like a test run.
Mm.
We came out. I lived in Oside in the Mid-Val, and went to school in the Mid-Val. I hated it. I was like, bro, take me back to the East Coast. I was
why did you hate it?
bro, it was like literally like the beginning of like heavy gang banging and shit like that. And, you know, the whole fucking neighborhood that I was living in was on some hood shit. It was just different from the East Coast because I knew what to expect in terms of trouble on the East Coast, and I didn't know what to expect out here. And oh my gosh, I hated it, dude. One time I was riding my bike. I swear to God on my life, this is a true story. I'm riding my bike. This dude in my neighborhood, this is some movie shit. This dude pulls out a hanger, throws it. It swoops, hooks into my back bike tire. I go flying off the bike, and they jack my bike.
No way. That's like some Inspector Gadget shit, dude. Like, what the fuck?
So that was like one of my first Cali experiences, and I was like, bro, like, get me out of here.
Gosh.
We ended up moving back, and then when we moved back in '86 again, I still didn't fit in, but eventually it started to catch on, and it was rapping. That saved me.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't work with like the surfer girls I would have wanted to get with probably, but it worked with all the cats that lived in my neighborhood and could relate to me, and then I found like my people. You know what I mean?
So you're trying to get the surfer girls, and they're like, nah.
They're like, nah, this isn't it.
Yeah. Oh shit, that's hilarious. Damn. Okay. Yeah, coming from the East Coast must have been wild because it was what is it like all hoodies and fucking, it's just all cold out there? Or
I mean, you know, it's definitely like, obviously, like I was trooping through the snow to school, and, you know, I was coming from a place like, no joke, like super influenced by like Run DMC. I didn't wear shoestrings in my shoes. So I'd have literally like either Pumas or Adidas, and I wouldn't wear shoestrings. And I still have to this day a note from my gym teacher in 6th grade from here at Lincoln Middle School in Vista. And they're like, your son refuses to put shoestrings in his shoes. They're like, we can't have this. And it was just some hip hop shit. And everybody, you know, would like clown me on it. Like they would make fun of me because like it just wasn't a thing out here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's wild. So my mom's from Vista. She was like born and raised out here.
Okay.
So we have a lot of history out here. So what time or what years were you out here, like originally?
So I moved out here in '86, and then I pretty much was in Vista like, gosh, I mean, the majority from '86 to about the mid '90s. And then in the mid '90s, I moved to Oceanside with my sister. And then from there, I was part of a group, which Mysteries Extinction. That was a group I was in, and all the other members were from Oceanside. I was the only Vista dude, and then I ended up getting an apartment in Oceanside as well. So I kind of like transferred from Vista to Oside, but my roots are always Vista.
Hell yeah, yeah. I got a lot of love for Vista.
For me too.
For me, it's always been like San Marcos is like my main hometown.
Okay.
So I went to school my entire career in San Marcos, from like kindergarten to college until I dropped out.
Okay.
But Vista was always like my second home because that's like where most of my mom's family's from and everything.
Dope.
So it was always those two sister cities.
That's like me and Oside. It's like it's either been Vista or Oside. Yeah. So that's why I always tell people, I'm like, my story is like both, always, you know, for sure.
Yeah, man. So you said earlier that when you came out here, there was basically no hip hop. You brought that over here.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There was hip hop, but it was like people were just starting to listen to like, let's say like Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, stuff, the Fat Boys, stuff like that. And I was bringing like real like we would consider underground now.
Yeah.
I was bringing like real, like hard to find East Coast hip hop.
Was
was
that a term back then? Underground?
Nah, nobody said that.
Really?
And actually, part of me despises the term because in the way that I grew up with hip hop, and one of the things anybody my age would tell you is that, like, if you were watching like Yo MTV Raps when you're a kid, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be playing MC Hammer. They're going to be playing Ice Cube. They're going to be playing De La Soul. They're going to be playing Digital Underground. And guess what? We loved all that shit.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't like, oh, man, I'm this type of hip hop. It was just hip hop. And we were like, man, this, you know, so as it started to get into all these little different subgenres, I was always kind of like, nah, I don't really rock with that. You know what I mean? But
interesting. So it was just all hip hop.
yeah.
So do you still feel that way now, even with like the new music?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, it's like I could even, like, don't get me wrong, like, of course, like, you have certain, now, you know, of course, you have certain genres that, you know, like, let's just take trap, for instance, right? Like, I'm not a huge trap fan, but at the same time, there are some trap dudes that crush it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even like Migos, like I can hear like certain Migos joints, and I'm like, those fools are spitting. And I'll put it like this: like if it was in my era where I grew up, the Migos would have been playing right alongside Wu-Tang Clan and Freestyle Fellowship and yada yada. So we would have just liked all of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I got into that whole like mindset of like just underground hip hop, whatever that even means. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
'Cause what we thought was underground hip hop was like Mobb Deep and shit when we were kids. Like, but that was like almost as mainstream hip hop as you could get. But we had like we had an altered view as kids out here from the West Coast of like what underground hip hop was.
Right.
All that. It was just all hip hop. You know, so I went through an era of my life where I was like a hater. I hated, you know, I hated anything.
I think we all did. All of us, even my age group, we did.
Yeah, I just hated anything that came from the radio or whatever, you know. But it actually wasn't even that long ago where I started to open up my taste to music, and actually it was because of hip hop when I started making beats. You know, you have to sample stuff.
And
so like that opened up
mind.
to the whole world of music. And I'm like vibing to like African music, Indian music, whatever.
Right.
Like music is just music. Like
that's one of the beauties of hip hop. Once you start digging for those records, you're like, oh wow, it does expand your mind. And to expand on what you just said, like literally even my age group, you know, we hit a point where we were like, okay, we're not the mainstream dudes. And really, it was just kind of like P. Diddy and the cats that were doing like R&B, you know, whatever. And we were kind of like, nah, we're like the real hip hop heads. Yeah. But what we used to label as underground, the funny thing is like most of those dudes had major label deals. You know, almost all of them. I mean, down to Freestyle Fellowship and Farside, all those dudes. Don't get me wrong, Freestyle Fellowship, when they were in Lamert at the cafe, like they were like hella underground, but they eventually got a mainstream deal.
Yeah.
I mean, the ones of us that were like really, really, truly underground, it's like cats like Living Legends were just still selling tapes every time you would see them. And it was few and far between. Mystic Journeyman and, you know, out on the East Coast, it's like, it's almost the same story because you had cats like Organized Confusion who were like light years ahead of their time, but they ended up on a major label too. You know what I mean? So the underground on the East Coast was like Bobito and them's like Fondlem label. They were putting out like Saya and Yeshua and like those dudes were so dope. And even the first Doom record came off of Fondlem before people even knew who he was, you know.
Yeah, he's got a weird trend that just like he started trending.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like a lot of these.
I'm not mad at it for sure. Yeah,
it's just kind of funny to see.
It's crazy. Yeah,
you know, like a lot of the Gen Zs, as they say,
for sure.
Just, like picked up MF Doom out of nowhere. I think it's like the quirkiness of it. You know, like the quirkiness, the anime-esque of it all.
Right.
Like I was talking to this Gen Z kid the other day, whatever that means. You know, just a young cat, and he's just like, oh, he's like, you got like MF Doom vibe. I could tell you probably like MF Doom, huh? I was like, bro, what the fuck?
You're like, but I do.
I'm like, yeah, I do. But it's just funny how like it's just like a caricature thing for them.
For
you know?
Sure, yeah, for
I'm
sure.
like, bro, you don't even understand. I had to hit him with the old man syndrome shit. I'm like, you don't even know who MF Grimm is, huh? I'm like, go look up MF Grimm. You know, we can talk about this whole thing.
And see, that would be like the underground version of like MF Doom now, even though Doom technically, even though he sold a lots of records with Madlib for sure, technically speaking, he was like real underground because he didn't really sign to a major aside from, I guess, Stone's Throw could possibly be considered that just based on how many albums they sold from the project with Lib and Doom.
Did he ever make it on Rhymesters? I don't know if he did or not.
I don't know. Was Doom on Rhymesters? He could have been, though. They might have released a project. I'm not positive about that, though.
Yeah. I mean, him and Slug, they were like,
Atmosphere was
Atmosphere.
like huge in the underground.
Still
too.
huge. I mean, they're still like doing big things. Like he's one of the few that really made it out from that era, I feel.
Those dudes, like when they came out, like when Atmosphere came out, I remember being at Access Hip Hop because they had like a connection to those guys too. And I was like, yo, like what I discovered about those dudes was I would meet females. And like the only group they would know about, like in underground hip hop, they'd be like, "Oh, Atmosphere."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Damn, I'm making music for the wrong crowd or something," you know?
Dude, I know Slug he found his niche.
For real, yeah.
That's probably how they've lasted all these years. It's just all the women just loving them.
Damn, that's not a bad thing for damn sure, right?
Not at all. Actually, I saw him live one time. I think I'm paraphrasing, but he said something that was pretty wild on this topic. He's like, stop calling me mainstream, or no, stop calling me underground because we're trying to take over the world.
For real though,
Dude,
and they were on that track too. Yeah, for sure.
Dude, man. Just gonna say something. Yeah, no, man. Just the underground music. Oh yeah, getting back to you moving out here to Cali. So nobody was really doing like North County hip hop. Like that has become its own thing, honestly.
Right,
and,
right.
I would love to do a documentary on it one day, or just have somebody do it, man. Because there is a lot of history here, including yourself. Yeah. And a lot of people who have claimed North County hip hop have branched out to do amazing things. For sure. Amazing things, such as yourself. I was just a small part of that community, but even myself, I was able to do so much with that love, with that community. And, right. Everything that I do to this day, I mean, all this Esoteric Eddie stuff, honestly would not have happened if I wasn't the artist that I was because of North County hip hop. Right. It's what I learned being an artist out here in North County that translated into me being an entrepreneur, an artist in these sectors. Right. So, so I got a lot of love for like North County hip hop. So even before you started to get into like what we call North County hip hop, when did like North County become a concept for you? Like this is a real community out here. It's not just one city, but we are a community. Right. When did that become a thing for you? Well, I'll say let me give props to the cast that were before me. So when I was a kid, one of the things we used to always do was go to Distillery East, and that was in Escondido. That was the place to go. Like if you were like a hip hop kid, it was an all ages event. You had to show your school ID. You come in. It was mostly for underage, kids to just have a place to go. What's that like? It became the Ice House. So it was like a bar? But you have to keep in mind it's underage kids, so it was no alcohol in there, nothing like that. But it was a place you go to dance, you'll see live performances. Eventually, they started throwing, I believe, 21 Up events, but at this time that I'm referring to, in the late 80s, it was basically like a young people's place to party. Where was this? It was off, and I'll never forget, it was off of Metcalf Avenue in Escondido. Oh shit! Yeah, right there. And so
back then, I used to just beg these dudes. There was a guy named Trick. They had a thing called Magic Trick Productions. One dude's name was Magic. The other dude's name was Trick. And so they did Magic Trick Productions. And there was Magic Trick, this dude Scotty K, the Doc. All these dudes were like old school pioneers of like throwing jams in North County. And people from Dago used to come down because there was only like 3 or 4 spots that were known for throwing hip hop at that time.
Wow.
And so at the time I would go and I'd be recording these little demos at home where I put in the tape of an instrumental and then record over somebody else's instrumental, you know. Like, let's say I had, like, one of my famous ones is Soul to Soul. I recorded me and my boy Como, who was going by Coolie Cool back then, and I was Fresh J. So we recorded this demo and I gave it to those guys. I'm like begging them, like, let me just get on the mic like one time up here, you know, blah, blah. And so the first time I ever really, really rocked the crowd was at the Distillery East while I was still like 15 years old, you know. And they finally, like, technically they didn't even give me a chance. It was this dude named Smurf. And he's like, yo, I heard that you rap and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, pulled me into a corner. These dudes are like 19, 20 years old. He's like, spit some, you know, we didn't even say spit back then, but he was like, rap for me or whatever. Yeah. And so I kicked a rap for him and he was like, oh shit. And he's like, and that night, Def Jeff was performing. And Def Jeff was like a big deal back then. He was signed to Delicious Vinyl. And these guys are like, yo, we're going to battle Def Jeff and we're going to bring you out as our secret weapon.
What?
And long story short, I don't know if Def Jeff would even remember this, but this is how it went down. All his dancers were in Delicious Vinyl jackets. Same label, Farside, all them eventually ended up on. Wow. And they're dancing in a circle. And these dudes are like calling out Def Jeff on stage. And then they're like, yo, they're like, let me bring up the little homie. And back then, it was not like, I'm telling you on my life, it was not white kids rhyming like that at this time. Like, it just wasn't. It was like obscene if you seen somebody, a little white kid get on stage or whatever.
That's an anomaly.
And so, exactly, bro. And so I got on stage and the DJ there, back then, the DJ booth was up above the stage. Like, you had to walk upstairs to go to the DJ booth. And he's DJing over everybody. And I looked up to the DJ and I'm like, yo, do you have Jack of Spades instrumental? Which was Boogie Down Productions, BDP, KRS-One. And he's like, yeah, he had it. He threw that on. I already had a whole thing to that. So I'm rocking. Bro, the crowd's going wild. And Def Jeff never performed that night. He never got on stage because the way that the crowd took it was like, this fool just got roasted, bro. Damn. And they never, like, he never performed.
Damn, so you just took over the vibe.
It's wild, yeah.
That is pretty gnarly, man. Like, as you're saying, like, back then, yeah, that was not common. You know, for a 15-year-old white kid to be rapping like that.
Yeah, this is like 89. You know what I mean? And to make a long story short of your original question, after I started going to Dago and doing shows out there, Orko and them, they had their whole thing. Like, that was their shit. Like, if you went to downtown SD, Masters of the Universe, I mean, there was plenty of other groups, you know what I mean? But Masters, like, held on. They're like one of the few groups that still, you know, you have Orko and then later, like, the young homie would have been Scatterbrain or whatever. Yeah, Odessa Kane, of course, back then was doing his shit. So you had those guys, and if we came out there and we rocked, we were, like, in their realm with LPSD and Masters of the Universe, Cutfather, you know what I mean? So eventually I was like, bro, we got our own shit though. You know what I'm saying? So I started just repping North County in songs to give us like a little sense of pride of like, bro, like, if we don't have to just go out to Dago, we got our own shit right here. You know what I mean? And with all due respect to Dago, you know what I mean? But yeah,
it's funny. Like, history repeats itself. We kind of found ourselves in the same predicament in a sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that your song "Hella Confused," like you shout out Vista, I think somewhere in the beginning or the end.
Yeah, yeah.
And that gave us a sense of pride. We're like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, we got our own OGs, our own legends, our own history out here.
That's dope.
It gave us something to rock with. And yeah, if you're not from North County, San Diego, like, you don't really get it. But like, if you're from North, it's like anywhere else in the world, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But there is something special about this place. And if you're from here, like, you know what we're talking about. Like,
100%. Yeah.
I mean, goddamn, like, everybody in the world wants to live out here, and, you know?
For sure.
You know? But people like you and other people in my family have been here since way before the bouginess.
Right, right.
I mean, there's always been rich money out here.
For sure.
But
up in the hills.
Yeah.
Up in the hills, yeah.
Well, I mean, at one point,
now it's everywhere, but it used to just be up in the hills, and then it was us inland. You know what I mean?
What I was gonna say is, like, at one point, all of the shit was hills.
Yeah,
I mean?
true.
All this shit was just
yeah,
farmland.
true,
I know what you mean, like, you know, up there.
Yeah, exactly. Overlooking the rest of us, you know.
Yeah, that was actually one of my dreams as a kid. Was like, I want to live in the houses up there in San Marcos.
For sure,
There's some gorgeous houses up there still to this day, like vintage houses.
Vista too. Vista has some crazy ones in the hills, bro.
Oh yeah.
Even some of the areas right outside of here, which is, I love all this farmland out here, but like Warmlands and all that, like there's some crazy houses up in those hills. Right?
Yeah, I had to learn that. Being a plumber, like going to all these different houses, like I didn't even know how vast North County really is because we just stuck to the, you know, the local spots. You know,
right. You stick to your neighborhood. Yeah, right.
But there's a lot of gorgeous stuff out here, you know?
For real, yeah.
But yeah, no, man, like, yeah, you definitely paved a major way. And yeah, when we started doing it, it was kind of similar. Like, our spot was the movement church.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. I performed there too, yeah.
Yeah, because our high school was right across the street, San Marcos High School. And I was one of the few MCs in my high school that was like repping it.
Dope. I love it.
Yeah, so homies knew me as like the rapper. You know?
That was a dope, it literally was a dope movement though. Like, because they would have cats painting and, you know, they'd have the MC element. It was a positive environment. Yeah, I love that, bro.
Yeah, and so when I was a, what do they call it, a freshman, the only other rapper that was repping it hard there was a senior by the name of Proverb the Poet.
Oh, yeah. I remember him. I remember Proverb. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And so he was like, at that time, like an elder to me, you know, like OG, because, you know, he was a senior. And so I remember like the last couple months, we met like towards the end of his year there. And somebody linked us up and like asked us to just like freestyle together. Like it wasn't like a battle, but we were just like showcasing our style, our skill.
But you were trying to go in, I'm sure. Yeah.
We were just going hard, you know. And it's like, yo, Eddie, kick your shit. I'm like kicking my shit. He's kicking his shit, and he's like, hell yeah. And that's when I got like the invite to the movement.
Dope.
And so I started bringing Vex over there too. I'm like, yo, we got to go kick it with my homie Proverb.
Dope.
And so we're doing our thing there, and then that's where we met Ruslan and the Breaks.
Of course, yeah.
And shout out Ruslan, dude. He's doing huge things on YouTube now.
So Ruslan, the funny thing, I don't know if you know who Belief is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Belief is literally my nephew.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I feel like I knew that.
So Belief is literally my sister's husband's son. And I helped to raise Belief when he was a little kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he would tell you this, you know what I mean? And he's gone on to do amazing things. If you haven't checked out Belief in Fatherhood, look it up, you know?
Yeah.
But my nephew Belief, oh man, you know, when he was just a kid, I was playing him Nas and, you know, Lauryn Hill when he's just a little youth, you know what I mean? So he definitely, I mean, he would be the one to tell you who his influences were, but once he moved back out here, because he's a Baltimore kid too, you know? So his roots are in Baltimore, along with a lot of my family. And once he made that final move out here, I was like, yo, I got to introduce you. Let me take you to meet Exile. And I was just trying to get him involved in the scene because he loved like real hip hop music. You know what I mean? And then him and Ruslan connected. And the crazy thing is like Ruslan, my next door neighbor, Jerry, who was like one of my OGs on Alistar Street here in Vista, he happened to be like some form of a coach to Ruslan. And then he's like, yo, I was letting these guys hear the Mysteries Extinction tape or whatever. And then it just, you know, small world, you know what I mean? And then I was like, dude, I think you're in a group with my nephew, you know what I mean? Like, so.
Dang, so those dudes were like youngins to you.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's wild, bro. You're like really old.
I'm hella old. In May, I'll be 49.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Congratulations, man. No, that's a cool thing, man. I look up to people who can make it through life in the older ages.
It's hard, bro. You know, it's hard, but especially it's hard trying to maintain who you are without compromising and giving up your soul. You know what I mean? Because I'm forever going to be an MC, whether I put out music to the public or not. Forever going to be an MC, forever going to be a graffiti writer. I'm a B-boy at heart. Like, I'm just a hip-hop head, and it's never going to change. You know what I mean? So it's hard to embrace that in a society where technically we're like the first generation of older people from the genre. You get what I'm saying? So it's not like you have like rock and roll cats that have like passed and gone. You know what I mean? Like, you name it, you know what I mean? And then you have cats like the Stones that are still left and rocking it or whatever. But in our era, aside from like, let's say like the Grandmaster Flashes and the Cool Hercs, the people that were in the Bronx at the parties, like we're the first generation that lived hip hop that we haven't even got to see us grow as elders yet, which is...
That's wild.
Kind of crazy to think about.
We're still witnessing history unfold.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's wild. Now that I think about it. Yeah, man. I mean, we could say so much about your career as an MC, and I still want to talk more about it. But yeah, I totally forgot. I mean, you were doing graffiti huge too. That's a whole nother thing. I'm sure you. So when did that come into play for you?
So it's really wild because, you know, I always say like, when you're a kid, right, one of the examples I always use is like, let's say, for instance, if I'm in 8th grade and my younger homie's in 6th grade. At that time, you're like, get a little homie, like, listen to what I say. And there's only like 2 years difference from you. But imagine from being in 8th grade, you're the big dog in the school. The 6th graders are just coming in, right? So that back then made a tremendous difference, you know, in terms of how you view things, you know. So you can be an OG in the 9th grade, putting somebody on game that's in the 6th grade, 7th grade. You know what I mean? And essentially, when I thought about graph as I got older, I was like, man, it was like a mad space between when I started rapping and when I started graphing. But in reality, it wasn't. It's that scenario that I'm talking about. I just felt like it was so long.
The years,
you know?
in like middle school and high school were like dog years almost.
Exactly.
It's hilarious to think that like a 9th grader could be an OG.
Right.
That's how we saw it. Like, yo, that's my OGs. Like, a little 9th grader. You know, like, what the fuck?
You look back at the picture, you're like, this little fool was my OG.
It's hilarious. Actually, the other day I was driving somewhere and I saw a little gang of kids, skaters, whatever, and they're all different heights, different ages. Right. And you could tell which one was like the older head. You know, he was taller. You know, it's just hilarious. But they all just look like kids to me.
They're all little kids.
Little kids. So like, but in their minds, it's like this whole hierarchy.
Right. Exactly. So I would say, like, in terms of graffiti, the funny thing is, like, I started rhyming in Baltimore, freestyling around 8, and then I wrote my first rhymes when I was 10. And when I moved out here at 11, by the time I was 12, I started toying around with my little bubble letters, which is now what evolves into throw up letters, right? So I was I was racking paint at 12 years old. I was racking paint, doing little bombs, and And, you know, I toyed around for years and years. When I say years and years, we're talking about like 3 years, 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So I was toying around, and then eventually I started discovering, you know, things of piecing nature and finding Style Wars and spray can art and subway art and all these books that I was like, oh, this is what it's about. And then when I eventually bumped into real writers, like big up Kid Six. Kid Six was the god out here. Like, you could say any other writer, but there was no writer as influential to North County, San Diego as Kid Six. That dude was an Escondido writer, and he was the god for at least 10 years.
Damn.
Like, straight up. Like, there's no way around it.
Kid
like,
Six.
yeah,
Is
you
he
would.
still around?
No, God bless. He passed away a few years back. But that dude, I mean, he was writing in the 80s, and he was running shit like up until the early 90s. There's nobody that would have tested that full.
Damn.
Like, you could have went up and been like, yo, I'm battling Kid Six. You're gonna lose. Like, my crew, MH, did a battle with his later crew, AK, around 93. And he did a character of me jacking off with Pumas on, and he just roasted me, bro. Like, and to me, it was like an honor. I was like, man, I just got roasted by Kid Six.
You're like, hell yeah.
I was like, I'm cool with it, and that's immortalized, right?
That's hilarious, bro. You know what's crazy too? My first crew that I ever put together was actually MH also.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Shit. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, we were like nothing.
I think I might have seen that eventually too, because I remember I was like, yo, who the fuck is writing MH? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think I did see that. Yeah.
It might have been. Eventually, it was just me repping it. Yeah, because I started doing that in like middle school. The way we got started was stupid. We're smoking weed, freestyling, and my homie Gumby.
Yeah.
In his freestyle, which is like, yo, we're the medieval hood.
That's kind of dope.
Yeah.
I like that shit. I might have to hit that up.
yeah, medieval hood. I was like, yo, that shit's hard.
That's pretty
like,
dope.
I was a stoner. I was like into like Lord of the Rings or whatever. So I'm like medieval hood, like, putting two things together. You know,
that's kind of hard. I like that. Yeah.
So we were throwing that up for a while, and then it transitioned over to mentally high. Mentally high crew, and that was like the actual crew, and then me and Found and the homie Ethic Marcelino started a hip hop group after that, Mentally High, in high school.
Oh, dope.
Yeah. So we were repping Mentally High crew in high school, and a little bit after that too. We did a lot with the name while we had it, but then it just fizzled out.
Damn, that's dope.
Yeah,
that's like we definitely murdered that name, and then it kind of. You know, as I got into music in the late 90s, more focused on music, and then really in recent years, I've been kind of revitalizing it. You know what I mean?
I see you like still showing love to it, you know?
For sure, yeah.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, I wish I could, but it all fizzled out. I had it tattooed on my knee. Actually, I tattooed it myself on my knee.
No way.
MH for life.
Damn, that's hard.
But I ended up going over it. Well, when I initially tattooed it, I was so dumb. I was so high. I wrote MH for lifey. I put 2 eyes in there. I didn't even realize till my brother pointed out. He's like, for lifey. I'm like, oh, shit.
I love it.
So I had to rock that for a while. Then my homie just covered it up. I got this fucking Olmec head over it now.
I know how that goes. My first one's covered up. And it's been covered up for like 20 years. But my first OG tattoo, it said Paper Thin. That was one of my rap names too. It said Paper Thin, and then I had my crazy life dots right here. So I was like, nah, I'll cover it.
Oh, dude, I know. I got too much cheap ink on me that I got to get covered. But actually, dude, the first tattoo I have right here, it says "Rap Sucks." First tattoo I ever got. I got it when I was 17.
No way, that's crazy. You should just keep it.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna keep this one. Rap Sucks. I got it when Vex was getting tattooed by my brother.
No way.
At Lucid's house. Remember Lucid?
Oh yeah, of course. Lucid Root, right?
I remember. He was there, and then Kid Riz randomly showed up.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he was there. Vex was getting tatted, and I was like, yo, hit me up real quick. And just like, rap sucks. And my thing was like, because I was still stuck in that like hater mindset where I was like, there's a difference between hip hop and rap.
Right.
So people are like, aren't you a rapper? I'm like, nah, I'm an MC.
Hey, it's still, that still does kind of hold weight though. I think that part of it, you know, the MC part of it, you really are trying to develop like a certain amount of skill. When you are rapping, you can't just rap to just make a catchy song, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That part of it I can see as like a real thing, but then I think there is such a fine line because, you know, back in the days, you know, for instance, let's take a song a lot of people think is corny. Let's take Vanilla Ice, Ice, Ice Baby. Okay, right? If you listen to the lyrics of the song, like, dude's not like on some super cornball shit. Like, it's kind of dope for what it was. You know, I used to hate on it hard, like super, super hard. I used to diss that fool when I was that age, like 15. I'd be like, forget that fool. But as I got older, I'm like, dude, I would have taken him rhyming that as a MC over a lot of shit that, you know, over the years I had to look back on and be like, oh, that's kind of corny though, dude. You know what I mean? Like even, I mean, let's take for instance, if you look at like Group Home, right? DJ Premier. I want to say something controversial right now.
Oh, shit.
But Group Home is a classic record, right? Classic record. It's just on some street shit. The dude, like Little Dap actually has some bars. Nutcracker, not so much. You know what I mean? Not so much. I'm going to keep it real. But if you had to put that cat up, like let's say for instance, against Vanilla Ice bar for bar, I don't know, on a premiere beat, you never know, bro. Like he might have got him. Like he might have got him. So that's what I'm saying. Like I know you guys are like, damn, Blaine, you took it too far. But I'm just saying, like, you have to think logically in terms of, you know, a lot of times the beat will help the MC or the MC will help the beat too. You know?
I could see that, because Nutcracker had a voice. Sometimes it's the voice.
The voice
too.
will carry you,
The voice will carry you,
like his voice is way fucking doper than mine, for damn sure. Like, man.
Yeah, that's what's cool about it. There's so much technicality in it, like the voice,
the
lyricism, the flow, the delivery.
100%.
It's a science, and that's why the legends are the legends. They get it, almost all of them dialed in. In a weird, unique way.
For real, yeah.
But damn, dude, so I mean,
that was a controversial one right there.
Hot take. But I could see that. If you would have asked me like 5-6 years ago, I'd be like, hell no.
Yeah, I know.
Blasphemy. What the
exactly?
fuck?
Yeah.
But no, I've opened up over the years, and you know, and I can understand that. You know what I mean? Like I listen to like random music you probably think I would never listen to.
For sure, I'm the same way, dude. A lot of. If you ask like any of my old school homies that I used to make mixtapes for in the 90s, like I was putting like shit like Natalie Merchant and the Cranberries on, you know, tapes for the homies, and they'd be like, man, Blame is like a teenage girl, bro. Like for real. But I just always like eventually, not always, but eventually I expanded my mind into just loving any kind of type of good music. You know what I mean? Yeah,
if it's got soul, artistry, I'll give it a chance, you know? Why not?
Shit, I'll fuck with 4 Non-Blondes. And at the same time, like I'm a huge reggae head, I'm a huge jazz head, all that. So, you know, just those of us that we have an artistic brain, we're not going to want to be confined.
Yeah.
Like that's just in our nature.
Exactly, dude. I have so many different ways of expressing myself, you know, with this stuff, with the music, with the books. I mean, I used to be a tagger too. Just so many different ways, you know?
For sure.
But over the years, I've kind of had to like minimize what I put my energy into, put my efforts into.
So you can focus.
Exactly. So I can focus, you know, there's just so little time. You know, so little time. And so I'm trying to like figure out, okay, what do I really want to do with myself?
Mm-hmm.
How do I really want to impact the people? Is it with this, with that? You know, I was doing hip hop for 10 years, a little over 10 years. And slowly I just realized for some reason, it wasn't effective anymore.
Right.
But more so, I just wasn't resonating with it, like locally or whatever. Like there were a lot of things that led to the moment of me deciding to not rep Professed MC anymore or really
Right.
be a part of that anymore.
Right.
A lot of moments, like the crew falling out and just arguments between me and the crew. It became more of a headache.
Right.
It became more of a headache for me to like get out here and try to rep.
Gotcha.
You know, because
yeah.
I've always been the one to like kind of organize and lead. You know? And
yeah.
so that takes a lot of responsibility. So all these arguments, all these issues, it got exhausting.
It's draining. It takes a lot of energy out of you. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I remember the moment too. I was standing there looking around, and it was like messing with my relationship too, like just all of it. You know what I mean? Just everything was becoming exhaustive, and like having to like hold up that hype energy for everybody all the time.
Right.
And I was also learning a lot of spiritual knowledge too. And so like I was evolving as a person.
Right.
And I just wasn't really resonating with like the street mentality anymore.
Right.
And I look back like, damn, I was really like on some like just some street shit, like just some like thugged out mentality. Like, I mean, I've always been into the esotericism,
right,
but I never really knew how to apply it. So when I started learning more about spirituality and duality and just the bigger aspects of life,
applying it to your character and how you carry yourself,
I started realizing like, man, like I don't even resonate with the message or the person I am right now. And so I slowly phased myself out of it.
Right.
And even when I was out of it, I was like, okay, well, what now? Like, who am I going to be? What am I going to do? Because I knew I still wanted to, be somebody in the world. And I still knew that I wanted to
have an impact,
help the world.
Right.
And I still love music. Matter of fact, I still make hip hop to this day.
Yeah.
Right here, in this little trailer. Like I'll still throw on beats and I'll still record and rap, but it's more of like a therapy for me now.
That's dope.
Like I still need to get that part out.
And you can, and that's the cool part is that sometimes it's necessary for you to actually exit something so that when you come back, you can restructure the whole thing from what you've already learned in the time being that you left, because now you would probably hit people in a whole different mind state and a whole different light. And the good thing is that you already have that cred of like, you've already lived that street shit, right? So the thing that I found is people that are on some street shit are way more happy to listen to somebody kick knowledge to them that they know have been through the same shit that they've been through. Because a lot of times, otherwise you're like, this fool's just really trying to preach to me or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas I think like a cat like yourself or myself is more like, yo, we're just kicking our life experience and we're not trying to force you to believe this or follow this path. This is just our perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Well, with that being said, let's get a little bit into like the knowledge.
For sure.
Because you definitely know a lot. I could tell from your music, and that's also one of the reasons why I really gravitated towards your music and your journey and your work. I think one of the first songs I heard of yours that like reflected that was Supreme Beings.
Dope. That's fresh.
I was bumping that in high school and I was like, hell yeah. Like that's when I was really, really diving into all of this stuff. David Icke, Alex Jones, all the classics.
Dope.
And so that song really impacted me. So where and how did you start getting into like the esotericism, the occultism and all that stuff?
I would say like to keep it real, like my whole mind state changed when I was about 16. I started digging into Rastafari. Rastafari was easily the foundation for me just to change my train of thought and like, oh, this might be a possibility, or I started reading these books called Itations by a dude named Malad Farzadi. And I wrote to him. I found an address on the back of one of the books, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask him a bunch of questions that I have about Rastafari after reading these books, because I had questions. I'm just a kid. I'm 16, and I'm like, okay, well, if these Ethiopians are actually descendants. And you could debate whether this is true or not. That's not even where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this is it opened my mind to say, like, wait a minute, like, okay, is this a possibility? You know what I mean? And then, you know, of course, as I'm getting further into history, I start realizing especially how so many groups have been oppressed, obviously, from Caucasian, European descendants. Some of them might be my own, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm just realizing, like, okay, well, you know, this makes sense because all of the people that I've associated myself with, there's like a certain uncomfortability in society. And like, even I could even say, like, when I was young, like, you know, sometimes we'd get like pulled over. I'd be in a group with my friends. I might be the only white dude in the group of my friends. We get pulled over just walking in a group by the police. And I'd be the only one comfortable, like, talking to the police. You know what I mean? And there's a reason for that, obviously, right? Yeah. And so I started just questioning a lot of things as a youth. And when I did write this letter to Milan, I certainly didn't expect the answer. You know, this is way prior to the internet age and all that. I wrote a physical handwritten letter, sent it off, mailed it with stamps, and like 2 weeks later, I got crazy jewels just dropped on me. And we started going back and forth. We became pen pals. And we started trading music, and I was letting him hear the stuff that I was recording and things like that. And he was putting me up on all kinds of reggae that I didn't know about. And he said, and this is actually a common book to find now, but back then he said there's a book, super rare book called the Kibra Nagast. And he said, I can get a copy of it for you. He said, but it's so rare, I'll have to hand copy every single page for you out of the book.
Damn.
And
this man would have loved PDFs.
Exactly. So he got a copy of the book for me. And in the Kibra Nagas, it essentially explains the story of how Solomon met Sheba and the Ethiopian portion of that story, right? And eventually it's going into, you know, me leading into the books of the Bible that were left out, the book of Enoch, which we can go into the Anunnaki, you know what I mean? So I started reading about these tall spiritual individuals who came down and made love to the earth women. And I'm like, damn, our earth women must be fine as a motherfucker. You know what I mean? So, hey, big up all the women out there. You got something extra, because if you got other spiritual beings that want to come sleep with you, you must got something really, really good, bro.
Hey, everybody's always like, yeah, the Anunnaki came here for gold. Hell no, they came here for earth pussy.
Exactly.
Nothing in the universe better than earth pussy.
Exactly, bro. So I literally... from there, from there, it just expanded. But one of the things that I always essentially go back to is, you know, clearly, like in our history books, everything was catered to a European, you know, conqueror's mind state. Yeah. And so when I started realizing, like, I read books when I was young, like Lies My Teacher Told Me. And you read a book like Lies My Teacher Told Me, you start to realize, damn, like all these stories I was told about, like Columbus, and, you know, you and I could go on, but it started to resonate with me. And then I started to feel like, man, I've pretty much been lied to my whole life, which was a young life. I had only been alive 16 years, but I already had the mind state of like, okay, well, I'm going to find the truth now. Yeah. Or at least the best of my ability to find the truth. Yeah. And essentially, I think a lot of things, once I started seeking, as they say, seek and you will find, stuff just starts to unfold. And then when you start talking to like-minded individuals such as yourself, then you start to think like somebody might give you a jewel and you're like, let me research that. And it's not like every single time you're going to be like, head to head and be like, okay, I completely agree with you, but you're going to at least go, oh, you know what? That does like make some sort of sense. Let me research that and see how I can apply that into my train of thought. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's where it started for me. It all started through Rastafari. Until this day, my train of thought, at one point, I pretty much consider myself as like a little Rasta youth, because that was like my foundation. Now I don't, but it's still the foundation of my spirituality. And like, I give thanks. I'm like so thankful for that part of my life, because it completely changed my life. So when you hear me say Jah, I'm still just praising the Creator out of respect for what I learned as a youth. You know what I mean?
100%, dude. No, I love like the whole Rastafarian history. It was one of the first documentaries I made on this channel was about Haile Selassie.
Oh, dope.
I think it was like the third or fourth, one of the first 5 or something. Because I found that history right around the same time. It's kind of weird, actually. Like we have similar journeys in certain senses.
Wow, that's a trip. Yeah.
I started rapping and finding all this stuff at like 15, 16.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
And Rastafarianism played a huge role in all of this for me too.
Wow.
Like, most people don't know that, but I got a huge respect for all of that as well. I mean, I grew up off of Bob Marley, and Bob Marley's lyrics, most people don't know this, but I'm sure you know this, but a lot of Bob Marley's lyrics are actually quotations straight from the Bible.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. And then, like, war is a speech from Selassie. Like, war is just a word for word Selassie speech.
Damn, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So if you hear the song War by Bob Marley, the only thing he added into that is everywhere it's war. The whole rest of the thing, until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior. That's a Selassie speech.
No way.
Yeah, that whole thing is a speech from Selassie. Yeah.
His Imperial Majesty.
Just crazy amount of jewels. You actually just gave me the chills right now. You just saying that out loud, because man, Selassie, man, if you read Selassie's speeches, like I have a whole book just of selected speeches from His Majesty, and like when you read how powerful this man spoke, it's just like, wow, like, it's pretty impactful, for sure.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, any young person going through like a spiritual awakening to come across that, it's like definitely gonna like fast track them to waking up and everything, man. Just the whole history behind that, behind him, his mission and everything.
For sure. Then, of course, where it gets, where the complexities come in is because, there are some Rastas that believe that Selassie was the reincarnation of Christ. And then there's but the thing I always tell cats is like, Rasta is just like any other religion. Like if you look at Christianity, you have Jehovah's Witness, you have Mormons, you have like the typical, Christians or whatever, but there's still conflict of interest even within regular Christianity, and Rasta is the same. The only difference between Rasta and Christianity, or even like you being a Muslim or Buddhist or whatever, is that within Rasta, it's already considered to just be a way of life. So philosophy is already an open part of the agreement. And you don't necessarily have to agree with your brethren on certain aspects. It's already agreed upon that we're going to just build and we're going to work with each other. So if, like I was saying, if you say something to me and I'm like, I'm not too sure about that, but you know what? Let me go think about that and we'll reason about that the next time we talk. That's just part of Rastafari, right?
Understanding.
There. Right.
Yeah, it's wild, man. Most people just think, Rastafarianism is weed, smoking weed.
Exactly.
And some Rastas don't believe in that, too.
Yeah, some Rastas don't even get down with herb like that. Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. It's way deeper than just smoking weed and growing your hair out.
That's for sure,
Way deeper, dude. Like, you get into King Solomon and all this stuff. Fuck,
and even the locks, comes from the Bible. It's the Nazarite covenant from the Bible. Really? So the locks... essentially, the Nazarite covenant in the Bible is a state where you grow your hair out as a symbol of that whole time you're growing your hair out, you're dedicating yourself to God.
Wow.
So the moment that you cut your hair, at that point, you're saying, I did this period of time where I was dedicating myself solely to God. And so that's how the locks came about as part of the Nazarite covenant, you know?
Epic.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of always figured it was something like that. It's like, I got some homies that I call them, you know, they're dreadheads. I don't know if that's a derogatory term or not, but I think it's a cool term. You know?
For sure, yeah.
Dreadies, you know.
There's nothing wrong with that, yeah.
Rastas. And, they're from North County. You know, I knew them when they were just skater kids or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they took onto it. They took onto it, grew their locks out, and started living the philosophy. And yeah, they're still growing them,
That's
super
dope.
long. And it's like, yeah, man, like, damn, you've been doing that for years. And all those years they've been living the philosophy. So it is like a testament, like how long they've been dedicated to it.
And even that term dread. Dread is just saying, like, it's a dreadful society. We're against what Babylon is, like, proclaiming to us as the way of life. We dread that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's huge in Rasta, which I tried to translate into my music, is word, sound, power. You know, every word and every sound that we make, it carries a certain vibration, a certain power along with it. So when we speak, let's try to speak as fluently and as purposefully as we possibly can. You know what I mean? And obviously we don't do that all the time, especially like you and I said, we're goofballs, right? So we might just be goofing around, but if somebody tells us something along the lines of what we're discussing, our whole demeanor might change, and we might be like, okay, well, yo, if you're talking about that, let me tell you this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I believe in that. Yeah, to me, that's kind of like Taoism. Somebody explained it to me that one time, was like Taoism is like where there's purpose in every action.
Right.
Like even the way like the masters will like pour their tea and like everything. So I actually like, it's kind of like a personal philosophy of mine. Whenever, from the moment I wake up, I try to move with purpose.
Right.
In, like every little thing I do.
That's dope.
It's kind of a compulsive thing though, more than anything. I don't know if it means I'm psychotic or what.
No, I'm sure that's a positive thing though. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely can be.
That's a consciousness right there, you know?
It fractalizes outward, because it's like the way you do small things is the way you do all things.
Right.
As they say.
Right.
But yeah, man, so the Kebra Nagas, Rastafarianism, you think we're living in Babylon?
I think 100% we're living in Babylon. I wish we weren't, you know, I wish we weren't. Like, we find so much beauty in life, you know, but then, like, the one thing I always say is I feel like we're in a certain purgatory here on earth, because we literally have heaven and hell right here. We have the most beautiful, you know, if you go sit and watch the sunset on the cliffs, you're going to be like, this is heaven. Yeah. And then if your cousin gets murdered down the street, you're going to be like, fuck this place, this is hell. You know what I mean? Like, why would you do that, bro? And we have both elements of that. And so literally, I feel like this portion of life, like, I'm not the one to say, like, whether we've lived lives before or anything like that. That's not a position that I'm going to hold. But the one position I will hold is I feel like we're trying to advance to a state where we can move forward. And I do believe that if you don't get to a certain state of mind, spirituality, consciousness, however you want to frame it, that you might have to redo that test, because, bro, if you haven't got there yet, you might keep just repeating the same cycle. And for me, I'm like, yo, like, I'm not trying to come back here, bro. Like, I get what's going on here, but I want the beautiful part of it.
Yeah.
And I want to move on to the beautiful part of it. You know?
Get to the VIP section.
Exactly.
So I thought about this the other day, man, and I was like, you know, heaven and hell, they're just moments in time in between the existential journey of trying to figure out which one we want to be in.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
At least on Earth.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, yeah, man, like you just said, like one day you could be it's super great. Everything's going good. The next day, everything's going down. So it's like, but each one's just always a moment in time. But what's in between those moment in times is the tranquilness of just being. And
absolutely.
Deciding which one you're in or want to be in.
100%.
And create.
And then how do you learn from that moment? Like when you're in it, like it's easy to be in the good moments and learn something because you're like, yo, you can learn to appreciate that moment. Like if you're sitting there and watching the sunset and the ocean is rolling in nice and smooth, you're like, man, thank you, God. You know, I appreciate this moment. You've learned to appreciate that moment in time and just kind of be still and enjoy, you know, life for what it is. But when you're going through that hard shit, like if you wake up and your job's like, we don't need you anymore, you know, and you're like, what the fuck am I going to do next or whatever?
Yeah.
Those are the moments where you're really supposed to learn, because how do you handle yourself in that moment without completely losing your shit? And or how do you take that moment and progress from it? How do you take that moment and say, you know what, I can do something even better than this, even if you got $100 in your bank account or less or whatever, you know what I mean? How do you go like, okay, I'm gonna be all right. Let me maintain my cool. Let me figure out my next step without going to rob the Bank of America or whatever. You know what I mean?
You're like, yo, let me chill for a second before everybody gets hurt.
Exactly, right. Because I think we, especially all of us that did grow up on some level of hood shit, we have those moments of where, like, I definitely have moments, even to this day, where, like, my head goes back to some grimy shit.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, yo, I'm going through this, like, fuck that, I'm about to... And then I'll be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, bro, you about to be 50 years old. Like, shut the fuck up and get your mind in order. You know what I mean? And I think that's important for, like, no matter what stage of life you are. And that can even relate to, like, a rich person, because, like, a rich person could be going through, you know, they just lost their parent, or, you know, their wife divorced them and they get in a state of depression and where they don't want to live anymore or whatever. And, like, dude, the way we handle those moments is, like, extremely, like, it's, first of all, it's super hard. Because we all get in those state of minds where we're like, bro, like, I don't know if I can handle this. But if what we find out eventually, if we hang on long enough, is that we can. Like, it's without a doubt, if you stay that extra day that you didn't want to live, you will find that somehow you fucking made it through. You know what I mean? And that's a lesson in itself.
Nah, dude, I really need to hear that right now. Honestly, like, I'm going through so much, and I'm trying to break old habits. I'm trying to create new habits too.
Right.
You know, and so that is true. And I was just thinking that the other day. I'm like, isn't it funny? I was listening to my two homegirls talk about their bad psychedelic trips.
Yeah.
They're just trading war stories.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there laughing like, isn't it funny? Because they're talking about these horror stories.
Right.
The funny thing is, they made it through every time.
Yeah, right, like, exactly.
And I always say, when it comes to psychedelics, no matter what I've learned from psychedelics,
right,
the one thing I've definitely learned is the trip is always going to end.
Right.
And you might not even like that. You might be going through a bad trip, and then it ends, and you're like, man, that shit was kind of fun, actually. Like, let me go back to that.
Right. When you're going through it, you might be like, man, I'm not down with this. But once you get through it, you're like, oh, okay, there was a lesson in that, you know? Yeah,
and so that's what led me to that philosophy I just stated earlier. It's like, wow, really, heaven and hell are just moments in time. You know, it's like, these lows are only going to exist for a moment in time, and these highs are only going to exist for a moment in time.
Right.
But for me, it's like the only thing that really matters is that tranquility, that middle ground where you can really discern both, and you can start to discern. For me, wisdom is like being able to discern which one is coming.
Right.
Like, here comes the low.
Right. No, that's really smart, actually. And to be honest with you, that is kind of like the level field you want to be. Me, I want to be at that. Like, I try my best to maintain that without losing my shit. And sometimes I definitely, absolutely lose my shit. But I try to know, like, okay, yeah, even when I'm going through like a super good time, I know that's not going to last forever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just part of life. Like, it's literally a wave. And if you're hitting up that up, you know, what goes up must come down and vice versa. You got to appreciate the whole ride, all of it, you know? And when you're on those downs, you have to remember that, like, bro, I'm on this down, but there's another wave coming that's going to lift me right back up. I just got to stay focused and be on my game because, you know, at the end of the day, it's a blessing to be here. It's a blessing to be right here, right now, talking to you. Hey, this likewise, is the type of stuff that makes my day, and I'll go home and I'll feel like, man, I was talking to Eddie. We had a good conversation. I feel good today. You know what I mean? And it's the simple things in life, bro. You know what I mean?
I love that, man. I mean, we can go on and on and on.
I know.
We only scratch the surface with the amount of knowledge you have, the amount of experience you have.
Sure, we'll touch base. We'll recalibrate in like a few months or something like that. Do a part 2 or whatever. Absolutely. Yeah.
Dude, well,
thank you for having me, brother. For real, that was so fun. Your energy is good, bro. Like I feel good right now. Like I said, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna be like, man, that was awesome.
Heck yeah, that means a lot too, man. Honestly, it's probably the place we're at too, man. Shout out to the ranch.
It's beautiful out here, man. Don't come stalking my man though. You know what I mean?
Not unless you're hot.
I'm only a call away. I'll come over here, bro.
We got North County legends on speed dial.
We're keeping it positive, but we're still guarding the perimeter.
Hey, for sure, man. I got to be a warrior in the garden.
For real.
Nah, man, but please tell the people where they can find you. Anything you're working on, anything you want to share?
Well, I have music that I've been working on. Definitely there's always things coming. I don't really have to promote anything, but if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's the original North County Don. If you were in Instagram and you just type in blame space 1 ONE, then you'll see me pop up. Yeah. But thank you all for paying attention and watching. Appreciate y'all.
Absolutely, man. Thanks everybody for rocking with us. Hope you enjoyed this. Love y'all. Peace.
Much love. Peace.
Namaste.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
that was fire, bro. Yeah. I loved it.